Welcome to Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. In this podcast, we delve into the non-clinical aspects of dentistry with inspirational guests from across the profession. You will hear incredible life stories, pick up valuable business tips and be entertained. I'm Andy Acton and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Drevens.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you talk to guests where you see where they are now, but we never see the bit before we saw them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's the lovely thing about all of it. I think all of them, I must say, is there's always this sort of little backstory of some description of some severity of something that has happened that has helped forge them into what they are today.
But a serial entrepreneur and a serious work rate, you know, what Shaadi gets through with all those elements and facets to her life is quite remarkable. But I think that's the thing, that diversity of what she does is the thing that also keeps her fresh as well.
Yeah, I say she obviously does a huge amount. You know, I'm not going to say adrenaline junkie, but do you know what I mean? That getting on with stuff.
Lots of activity. No, it was a lovely chat. It was really enjoyable. So, yet another episode.
Another exciting episode. I cannot wait.
Me neither.
Just about sitting down through the excitement of it all.
And here we go. So today we are joined by Shaadi Manouchehri, who is a dentist, director of the London School of Facial Aesthetics, a podcast host of Teeth and Tales, and a social media queen with 12,000 followers on Instagram, 187,000 on TikTok, and 6 million likes, which is quite remarkable. Welcome, Shaadi. How are you doing?
It's not bad going for a dentist.
I'm very well, thank you, guys. Thank you for a lovely introduction. You've really done your research and your homework. That's very impressive.
We did a little bit of digging around. Those numbers were at last week, and things move quickly, so it may be even more by now.
It may be.
Who knows?
So I understand your name, it translates to happiness, which seems to capture your spirit so well, because whenever we meet you, you're always smiling, you're always happy. You're very much kind of a cup half full type of person.
Thank you so much. That's a lovely way of putting it. Yes, Shaadi does mean happiness. My parents were very happy when I was born. They were expecting me to be a boy, and they already had a son. So they were very happy. My mum didn't scream when she was giving birth to me. She screamed when she found out I was a girl. Oh, and that's where the name came from.
Brilliant. So what do we need to know about your early years to understand the person you've become today?
So I guess a lot of it goes back to my family. I am very, very close to my family, and everything that I do, everything I've done, everything I am is because of them, genetically and otherwise. We always joke that the genes in my family are all very ambitious, very high achieving, and we're always striving to do better than the previous generation, and they keep us going. I always talk about my mum, who encourages me to be a better person, to do better. And I know when I went on Paymon's podcast years ago, I was talking about my mum the entire time and how she inspires me to become a better person, and everything I do is to make my family proud. I was born in London, but I grew up in Iran until I was 11 years old. And then I moved back to the UK with my family for better education generally, and went to uni. And those are my early years summed up.
How did it turn out that you were born in London but went back to Iran for a number of years? Were the family over here just temporarily, or...?
My family couldn't really make up their mind as to where they wanted to live. So both my parents studied here, and then they went back, which is where they met. They got married and then they came back. They went back and forth quite a few times when my brother and I were young. And then they eventually decided to settle down there. And then when the time came for us to sort of get serious about our education, they decided to make the move. A lot of my cousins, a lot of people in my family have just moved over here for university and went back. But my family, because of the background they had here, they decided to kind of move indefinitely, and we all came together.
Right. So you came over and you did your what would have been your GCSEs over here.
Yeah, so it was a very challenging time because I personally didn't speak English. My entire family obviously did. My parents did. My brother is an all-round genius, so he spoke Farsi, German, English fully.
Wow.
And it was a difficult... Exactly. It was a difficult time for him because he had to do his GCSE straight away. He's 4 years older than me, whereas I had a few years before I had any serious exams. It was all kind of getting a hang of it.
What age did you learn English?
I was 11.
Wow. Wow. It sounds like you've just always been able to speak English.
I have a bit of an accent if you listen closely,
Yeah,
and if
you
I'm really
have.
tired, my accent comes out.
Yeah, but not much at all. Not much at all.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. But it was really, really difficult because I've always been sort of sociable and, I wouldn't say extroverted. I'm an introvert extrovert, but for me, it was a difficult time to sort of move here, go to school, and not be able to speak to anybody and make any connections or relationships. So I remember I would sit in class about, for a good month or two, and I couldn't speak to anybody because I didn't understand anything.
Wow.
Luckily, from an academic point of view, we were quite advanced in Iran. So I understood everything that was being taught, particularly in things like math and science. And, with maths, there's no language barrier as such. So I was lucky in that academically we were advanced, but it took me a while to catch up in terms of speaking the language, and also things like English literature, English language. I still don't like them very much because they were always very difficult for me.
Did you get teased?
No.
So everyone
thankfully,
everyone left you alone. It wasn't like they.
Yeah, but there was a lot of things that culturally I just didn't understand, because growing up in Iran, the school that I went to was one of the best schools in Tehran, and everybody that went to school with me, all my friends, had a very, very similar background to me. We all lived near each other. So for me to move here, and when I went to school, everybody was different. Everyone came from a different background, be it ethnically or otherwise. So it was really, really challenging for me to understand the culture and all of that, and be sensitive to the cultural topics and things, because I had no idea. I'd grown up in a place where everybody was the same. So it was a really difficult sort of culture shock for me initially, but I got used to it very quickly, and I had my family around me to support me.
Was it a lonely period of time? Because I'd imagine it's probably quite isolating, just being able to not communicate with your friends at school.
It was difficult, but to be honest, I had so much going on that I didn't focus on that. I was just very focused on making sure I can learn quickly so I can make friends and get to know people. Because secondary school as well, a lot of people are already trying to make friends and trying to find out what they're about at that critical age. And for me, it was just an added challenge that I had to deal with.
Right, yeah. And did you decide quite early on in your life that dentistry was for you, or was that something that came later? I only ask because in the UK school system, and you'd know this because you came through it, that you kind of have to decide on your GCSEs when you're 13, 14. And that kind of sets the path for what your A-levels become, which gives you the entry grades to go to dental school.
Yes, no, absolutely. I didn't know 100%, but I kind of knew. I mean, I always joke about this coming from a Persian background. There's only a certain number of degrees that you can really study that are accepted by your parents, dentistry being one of them. So I knew that I would always be doing difficult GCSEs, the science-based
GCSEs. Is this the doctor, dentist, lawyer, or failure? Is it that one?
Engineer, yes.
Engineer.
We're not so sure about lawyers, so it's doctor, dentist, engineer.
What about accountants? What accountants, maybe?
That's actually quite a good point. I think the list has been probably updated in recent years, but the highest compliment anyone can give you in a Persian culture is to call you a doctor or an engineer. And that's literally what you have to study, I guess. My brother was obviously a bit ahead of me, so he I guess he knew pretty early on he wanted to do medicine, and that was because of his passion. Right. I knew medicine was an option, but I steered more towards dentistry. And again, that was, I never actually know if it was my decision or my parents, but if it was their decision, they did a good job of hiding it, because I think subtle. I decided for myself. Yeah.
But you strike me as someone who's got quite a lot of creativity, and we'll come on to your social media content later. So that creativity and that artistic element sits better, in my view, with dentistry than medicine anyway, because there's a very strong creative element to the work that you do in dentistry.
Yeah, true. And I always knew that I couldn't handle medicine. Right. I mean, I genuinely do. I mean, my brother tells me stories and things that I think if I was a medical doctor, I would be in a corner crying the entire time. I wouldn't be very happy. I wouldn't be able to have that emotional intelligence to separate my personal life from my work life. So I don't think I could handle that. And that became truly apparent when I was doing Max Fax. And I realized that I actually can't dissociate my work life from my home life. So I don't think I would make a very good doctor, because you need to be in a position where you can separate that so you can look after your patients and make decisions and be good under pressure. I don't think I could do that.
Right. And so what was your dental school experience like? I assume by now, by the time you got to dental school, you were fluent in English and communication was way easier than it was.
I was. Dental school had its own challenges for me. I became quite stressed and anxious my first year of dental school. And I don't talk about that a lot in detail because it's still a sensitive topic for me. But in my first year of dental school, I found the adaptation from school to university quite challenging.
Right.
In that when I was at school, by this point, when I was doing my A-levels, I had my solid group of friends. I was doing really well academically and in extracurricular stuff. So I always felt like I was put up on a pedestal, which was really, really nice in school. I was always involved in schoolworks, and I had a solid group of friends that I was very close with. And we were all doing such different things. Nobody else was doing dentistry. And that everybody was unique and celebrated for who they were. When I went to dental school, I felt that I wasn't special anymore because everybody else had tons of A's and A stars and extracurricular activities and all of these things. So I found that quite challenging to deal with. So in my first year of dental school, I struggled a lot with dealing with anxiety and things like that.
It's amazing, actually. One of my friend's sons, he was smart in school, and then he went to Cambridge, and exactly the same thing. He then realised that he might not have been quite as smart as he thought he was, because obviously everyone else was really smart in the room. And it's exactly the same, Shaadi. He had a real struggle for the first year, sort of trying to come to terms with it, because it'd been alien for his past 10 years almost.
I suppose you go from an environment where you're kind of, in the top 1%. To suddenly you're mixing with everybody who's in the top 1%. So I can see how that would be quite a shock, and particularly at a time when the first year of anything is always hard. So the first year at university is tricky, and you've got that to deal with as well. But clearly you adjusted to it because you carried on and got through it.
Did you stay at home or did you go? Were you?
I did. I stayed at home.
Okay,
I was I was adamant that throughout my life, I wanted to stay in London. I don't like going outside. So
it's like a fine wine. You don't travel well.
Yeah, but after that experience, it was a make or break moment for me. I failed my Part 1 exams, even though I was studying more than I'd ever studied in my life. But because I was unwell and not looking after myself, I wasn't eating a lot. I lost a lot of weight. And I failed my exams, even though I was studying a lot, because I just couldn't contain the information I was reading. And that became a make or break moment for me, where I suddenly realized, actually, I've worked so hard to get here. I'm not going to let this sort of ruin everything for me. So I had a lot of help from my family and my GP, and I got the help that I needed, and I turned things around. And from then on, I focused on doing better.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Good for you. I mean, it's a real lesson in resilience.
For people to listen.
A lot of people today, they think resilience is just one of those things that you talk about, but it's like a learned experience, isn't it? And okay, your experience was incredibly hard, but you come out the other side of it and you become a different person. And I think lots of young people, and you may have found yourself in this category before you went to dental school, the kind of, everything just trotted along and there were never anything that kind of challenged you. But to deal with that and come through it the other side is a great thing. And would you have advice for the next generation who are kind of heading into dental school over the next couple of years or already in dental school? What would your advice be to those students?
I think, to be honest, especially now, I think people going into dental school now have it much harder than even I did, because with social media and everything, it's so easy to see a skewed perspective of everyone's lives when that's really not the case. You just see the highlights, you just see the positive things, you don't see the struggles, you don't see the anxiety, you don't see the low points. So I think the advice I would give to them, and to be honest, myself at any stage of my life, is just to look after yourself alongside reaching your goals and ambitions, because unless you're well and you're looking after yourself, you can't enjoy anything that you achieve. And I had this rule throughout dental school that I would never study the day before an exam. The day before an exam would always be a self-care day for me. I would either go shopping or for a coffee with my mum, or I would have a spa day and things like that, because you being well really affects your performance. Like my reasoning was that if I saw something the day before an exam that I didn't know, it would really get me panicked. It would get me in a horrible state of mind, and I wouldn't be able to perform well. And I did experience this when I would.
Clever.
It's so true. And even now, if I have anything coming up, if I have a serious presentation now, the day before is a self-care day. You don't study the day before an important event.
No.
So I would say that's my advice. Don't overdo it in terms of your studying, because it doesn't necessarily mean you'll do better.
It's not a bad day, is it? Coffee, shopping, and a spa. Depends what order it is, I suppose.
I was going to say, on that basis, you want 2 or 3 big presentations a week.
Yeah.
That would be the perfect life.
Oh, just got to go shopping. Oh, I'll have a coffee.
So you then came out of dental school and did your FD year. So what was your FD year like? Because talking to lots of students at dental school, and there were many at Marduk's event last week, it's interesting because you don't deal with real patients and real emotions and the whole 360 degrees of being of patients. So how was that to start with for you?
For me, again, my FD year was kind of challenging because I was in an area of London where there was a certain demographic. So I was in East London in Ilford,
Right.
And there was a high Asian population, and a lot of them didn't speak English. And I was there trying to figure out my dentistry, trying to figure out how to speak to patients, and I couldn't even speak to them. And I didn't necessarily have a supportive environment, unfortunately. I clashed a lot with my trainer during that year. We did have a couple of clashes during the year. I'm not one to stay quiet when I think there's injustice being done. So I spoke up, and he didn't particularly like that. The nurses I was having, I was given a trainee nurse who wasn't very good. And, being an FD, you have to have a trained nurse. You have to have a qualified nurse to help you. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case for me. So I was there trying to deal with my nurse, who unfortunately wasn't very good at what she was doing. And she wasn't very receptive at the information we were giving her. None of my patients spoke English. And I was there trying to do something I'd never done before in terms of, it was a high needs area as well. So there was a lot of treatment to be done in terms of difficult molar endos, extractions, dentures, all of these things that I hadn't dealt with before. So it was challenging, but I learned a lot. And I think I took full advantage of it, and I clinically got a lot better during that year.
Yeah, and Chris and I talk about it a lot in terms of where are those learning moments. And as lovely as it is to learn from people who are great, you actually do learn an awful lot from people who aren't great and challenging situations. And whilst in the moment it's not great, you do take so much from those, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's not necessarily when things go right that you learn things. It's when things aren't going well. And, I'm not one to sit here and moan about the situation I'm in. It's just about making the best of whatever situation you're in, because everyone's going to have their own challenges, whatever situation you're in. It's just about making the most of it and making sure things aren't being done unfairly. I think if you're an FD, it's easy to think, well, this just must be it. But having spoken to my colleagues and my peers, I knew that my situation was a bit different to theirs. So that's when I was kind of more motivated to take action to change things for the better.
But you dug in and stayed there as well, though. You didn't.
I did, yeah.
That's the thing, the diversity you learned from the diversity. So it's quite interesting as to what you had to do.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah. So then you qualified, and you were out in the big wide world, and you're a dentist.
Whoop, whoop.
I was.
So you came back in. So did you then come back into the safety of inner London? Because obviously Ilford's quite edgy.
As far as I will go.
That's quite a travel, isn't it?
It was very challenging. For work, I didn't travel work. Otherwise, I'm great. Yes, I then came and did my DCT 1 year at Guy's in St Thomas's, and as we know, that's the best place to be. And I know I'm from Barts, and Barts alumni won't appreciate me saying this, but people who have rivalry between Barts and Guy's, and those who think Guy's are superior, I mean, their view definitely is better than us. So I was there with the same view as the people in the Shaadi. So it was wonderful. I did my DCT 1 in pediatric and restorative dentistry. So 6 months of peds at St Thomas's, 6 months of restorative at Guy's. This is when I thought I wanted to be an orthodontist. So getting a training post in pediatrics was very, very good and unheard of in my friends and things, because it was a difficult post to get. So I was very pleased with that, and I had a great year during that year.
Yeah, and you did do a postgraduate diploma in aligner therapy as well, didn't you?
I'm doing that now. So when I was in
right?
hospital, yes. So when I was in hospital, I quickly realized I didn't like the hospital environment. So I didn't want to do the sort of postgraduate training specialist pathway. So then this was my way of doing orthodontics training, postgraduate training.
Yeah, but you've got a lot on your plate, because are you working as an associate still 3 days a week?
I am, yes. I do have a lot of my plate.
So the thing is, you're an associate 3 days a week. You've got your facial aesthetics business. You've got your podcast that you're doing, but you also are developing your social media profile as well with all the content you produce there. So, you know, in days of old, we speak to lots of dentists who perhaps have been associates many years, their own practices, and that consumes them. So how do you balance all of these things? Because I think if we were talking sort of 5 years ago, you'd have very much been an outlier. But I think there's more people moving towards your kind of style of working. But what's the secret sauce to make sure that you can do all those things well?
I would love to tell you there is a secret sauce, but there isn't. And honestly, it's an ongoing process to learn the balance. And my health and my physical health is a good way of reminding me when I'm doing too much. And actually, we had a training course this weekend. So I was working all week. We had a training course this weekend. I personally had a podcast recording this morning. And as we know, I double booked this podcast recording session.
We weren't going to tell anyone.
So it's a lot, and sometimes it's too much. And for me, when I'm doing too much, I have physical signs. So I get severe abdominal pain when I'm really, really stressed. And I had an episode this morning. So I'm glad that's over and I don't have to deal with that. But it's an ongoing process. And I think I am quite an ambitious person, and achieving certain things and gives me a high, and it just motivates me to keep going. It's not easy. I haven't cracked the code. I don't know if anyone has the code. I think it's an ongoing process of trial and error, of seeing what works. But I would say the most important thing that I don't do and I should do is looking after yourself, because it's quite easy to get carried away with your to-do list and the stuff you want to achieve. But I think it's very, very important to take a step back and say, well, actually, today I'm going to rest. And that's equally as important as, a super productive day of just doing things and getting through your to-do list.
And I know you talked before about how important the environment is for you as well, in that if you're in a positive environment, you tend to thrive and do really well. And I don't know if that kind of harks back to your FD experience or not, but in the mixture of work that you do you consciously have to make sure you create a good environment to get the best out of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of the places I work, I mean, I do have the ambitions of having my own practice one day, hopefully. But in the meantime, unfortunately, I will have to work in other situations where I'm not in charge of a lot of things. So it's quite difficult for me to find the right balance, and knowing that there is no perfect place. It's taken a lot of trial and error, and I have had to go through experiences that haven't been particularly pleasant. But I think what that's taught me is that it's very important to me where I work, because if it's a toxic environment, I'm not going to be productive. And I've also learned to trust my gut instincts, to know that even if I can't justify why I'm uncomfortable in a situation, I do need to leave, because ultimately that's not going to be the best position to be in. And, that takes priority over anything else in terms of financial gain or, progression in my career. So, for example, I've been in practices I haven't been particularly happy. In hospital, I wasn't particularly happy with certain things. So it's taken trial and error to find the right balance and find where I'm happiest. And also with my content creation and the podcast and all of these things, I quickly found out that actually that keeps me really, really happy and motivated. And I'm in a fortunate position where my content creation is a stream of income as well. So it's equally as important as my clinical work. And I've been able to make it that way so I can create the ideal sort of work environment and work balance for myself.
Good.
So these things, when you do because I see the things on Instagram and stuff like that. So do they come to you, or do you have to sit down and work out what you're going to do? You sort of think, right, I'm going to talk about so-and-so. How does it sort of work on the creative process? Do you get a kernel of an idea that you then expand, or do you sort of sit down and say, right, I'm going to do 7 topics?
It's a combination of things. So I think when I first started, it was very much what can I think of and what do I think will work best. And then a lot of trial and error to see what was really received well and what wasn't particularly popular. And then moving forward, working with brands and things like that. For example, I work with TikTok for a campaign, and they wanted to encourage sort of informative content on the platform. So that was very much on the basis of, well, what are you going to teach people with this video? A lot of the stuff I do is literally just for fun, and to show people that dentists are relatable. And that's where my whole channel started. But some of these things are more geared towards raising knowledge and bringing information to people.
It's always fun and quite entertaining.
I was going to say, I think it's good stuff. I mean, we'll come to kind of how you go about that in a minute. But in addition to that, you also have your podcast that you said, Teeth and Tails, and
I do.
And it's got a lovely laid back style. But we started this channel because there was a platform called Clubhouse. That was an audio only platform. It only lasted for a very short period of time.
I remember that. Yes.
Do you remember it? Like arrived and died over about 3 months. Yeah, and it was good fun for a while, but what we found that with that was it went out live. So if people weren't around at a certain moment, that was it. So recording like we do here is so much better.
Yeah.
And we started because basically we wanted to hear people's life stories, have some fun, and out of that will come some business tips. And at the moment, it's gone really well. Yeah. It's been really enjoyable. What was the driver for you in terms of doing Teeth and Tails? Why did you kick that off?
Didn't have enough to do.
Yeah, I just didn't have enough to do. Honestly, it's really interesting because with TikTok videos, so TikTok is where it all started for me, TikTok and Instagram. And I created a TikTok video. So with TikTok, there is a lot of, miming videos, doing silly actions, not necessarily speaking. So the first sort of few speaking videos that I did, there was a few random comments saying positive things like, oh, your voice is very therapeutic, it's very soothing. We would love to listen to you about this and that. And that kind of planted a seed in my mind. And slowly that developed into the idea of a podcast. And, when it started, this was 2020, it was around the pandemic time. There wasn't many dental podcasts around. And I thought, well, this will bring a lot for patients. So that's where it came from. It was about raising information for patients. So about certain procedures like teeth whitening or be it crowns or Invisalign, with sort of members of the profession and people that I knew and enjoyed speaking to. And then slowly I realized that my audience was mainly healthcare professionals and dentists, particularly young dentists. So it sort of transformed into it being a profession-facing podcast. And, some of the episodes that have done really, really well were things like how to deal with failure, and things that people can relate to, because my audience it varies depending on their demographic, but a lot of them are young dentists, dental students. And I feel a responsibility to tell them about the realities of, dentistry and some tips from people in the profession that could share with them. So I think it's had a very positive feedback. And I really, really do enjoy making it. It's a lot of work because I do everything myself, but it is very enjoyable.
Yeah.
You've got a very relaxing voice, actually.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Just made me think, did you ever see that Graham Norton show? Matthew McConaughey does sort of relaxation messages.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
What, like bedtime stories?
Yeah, it's really funny, really funny. Perhaps that's the next thing for you.
Yeah, maybe, because I don't have too many. I have too much free time, I think, right now.
Exactly. So you say, so in terms of all of your social media content, you create, edit, and post everything yourself. You don't outsource any of that.
I tried outsourcing, or I thought about outsourcing. That's, to be honest, from the get-go, I thought about outsourcing it. But I'm a bit of a control freak, and I have a very specific way that I want things done. And for me to delegate is actually a lot more work than doing it myself. So I actually enjoy editing it, putting things together, taking them from idea to execution. So I enjoy it. I think there will come a point where I will have to delegate, and I will, I promise. But it's just for the time being, I still enjoy doing these things myself.
Mm-hmm. And at the moment, in terms of your kind of working week, you spend about a day a week on your content. Is that pretty much how you do it? I'm only asking because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have aspirations to raise their profile and create content, but I don't think lots of people appreciate just the work, you and some of the other very high profile dentists put in to creating such good quality content.
It is a lot of work. And honestly, I think it depends what standard you want them to be done by. It's easy to create content. It's not easy to create good content, in my opinion. And for me, it takes a lot to, make sure the content itself isn't actually that difficult. It's making sure you have the time to plan it carefully, to have the right setup, lighting, be it, if you need a mic for audio, make sure that you look presentable and you're in the mood to create content, because especially if it's a speaking kind of content, there are days where, people ask me all the time, like, how do you do it? How do you talk for so long? And some days I literally cannot, so some days I'll have to call it a day. It's not like writing things. I also enjoy writing things, and we now have a regular column for the facial aesthetic side of things. Writing things is very different in that you don't necessarily have to be in a mood to speak or to look a certain way to create visual content. You don't have to have the right lighting. You don't have to have hair and makeup done. You don't have to be wearing the right type of things. And I understand there's, writer's block and things like that, but that's something you can do in your own time. I can do it when I get home from work. And honestly, the content side of things can be quite draining. And sometimes my clinical days are the days I get to relax and enjoy compared to the content side of things. But it varies depending on the type of content that I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's quite a good thing, actually, in a sort of bizarre way, isn't it? That people get very stressed about dentistry, and in a way you can have sometimes your dentistry is a relaxing day.
Yeah.
Which is quite a nice, healthy balance, actually, isn't it?
And it's nice to hear that the feedback's been mostly positive as well, because I think generally social media gets a fairly bad rap for lots of the negative stuff that goes on. And I genuinely believe that it's mostly good. And whether that's just my outlook, but I genuinely believe that most of it is good. And there's a few nasty people out there. But on the whole, your experience has been positive using social media in this way.
I think it depends on your perspective and what you're trying to get out of your social media. It's one thing being on social media for vanity metrics, like getting X number of followers or likes or people saying nice things about you. But it's never going to be 100% positive. And I remember my brother had a serious chat with me before I started, because I'm by nature quite a sensitive person. And I don't take constructive criticism well. I think I'm not alone in that. But he had a serious conversation with me, and he was like, look, when you put yourself out there, there's going to be people who are going to have opinions about you, and not all of them are going to be positive. Are you okay with that? Because if you make it, if you don't make it, that's fine. But if you do make it, you're going to have people saying sometimes nasty things about you, horrible things about you, and you need to be able to deal with that and not take it personally. So initially, when I was doing TikTok videos, there would be, and with TikTok videos, they can go crazy. Like there could be millions of views of one video that I didn't particularly plan a lot. So you can get thousands of comments of people saying a whole range of things about you and what you think. And, we talk about keyboard warriors, about people, trolls sitting behind their keyboards and saying all sorts of things. But I think with anyone who's trying to create content and put themselves out there, you need to see what you're trying to get out of it. What is your purpose with your content creation? And I'm quite clear about my why on social media. So as long as the positives outweigh the negatives for me, it's worth doing. And the negative comments that might come from it are just part of the parcel. So you have to be able to deal with that. But there's also all the wonderful things that come with it. Like anything in life, it's not 100% positive. But as long as the positives are more than the negatives for you personally and what you're trying to achieve and your purpose, then I think it's worth doing.
I think that's good advice. Do you read the comments, or do you just post content and move on to the next bit?
I do usually try and read them and respond to them. But sometimes when there's too many of them, I just physically don't get to see them, especially on TikTok. But still sometimes when you see a negative comment, it stings a bit. It stings a bit.
Right.
But I've gotten much better at moving on from it and focusing on the positives, because there's usually about 99% positive feedback and about 1% negative, if that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty good balance when you put it in perspective.
It is. But human beings, being what we are, we always pick that 1%, don't we? And it kills us.
Yeah.
If you get a bit of criticism, it doesn't matter how good everything's gone, that's what we get drawn
Some of those some actors, isn't it? They'll never read the reviews of their own whatever they've been in, because they said, some are crap and some are good. So they just don't bother.
Yeah, that's why I was interested to see whether you read the reviews, because I know there's some people who just post content and just never look at it again. It's a bit like say actors that make films.
Yeah, no, I do look at them. And I do get lots of messages from people, and it's usually all very positive.
Good.
So I think it's the balance.
That's all time consuming as well, isn't it? When you think about it, messages that you have to respond to and all that sort of stuff.
I must admit, I'm always impressed,
It's a lot.
with the content that you put up and others, because I kind of occasionally scroll down and the amount of interaction that goes on, because it is. And I think when you're doing it for a wider purpose, and I guess a part of why you do your content is to educate people in dental procedures and what dentists do and approachable. Responding is quite important, because that's how you build that kind of engagement and a deep level understanding, as opposed to just posting it once and sort of moving on from there.
Super quick typer.
Yeah. And something else you're involved in is you're also director of the London School of Facial Aesthetics. So tell us about that. What's that?
So that's a very exciting new venture that myself and my good friend Dr. Christina have embarked on recently. And honestly, it's so rewarding and it's so much fun. We had a training weekend this weekend. It's incredibly tiring. I cannot explain to you how tired I was by the end of it, even one day, just because you're on a buzz the entire day. And I've never done any sort of teaching or training before. And the London School of Facial Aesthetics is basically our baby at this stage. We took it over from previous owners and it's been ongoing for more than 10 years. So it's not new by any means, but we have a lot of ideas of what we want to do with it. And we did do a lot from the get-go. But it's just all of these ideas and we're kind of getting ahead with ourselves, and touch wood, the feedback and the welcome that we've had has been beyond anything we could have imagined. But we're kind of in a situation where we're like, okay, we can't do everything ourselves. We need to recruit X, Y, Z. We need to be able to do this so early on. So it's a lot. And especially with everything else that's going on, is not easy. But I think we've definitely had to work on our planning and seeing where we can fit everything in to be able to do things. And we do really need to start recruiting.
And so the plan is to have a rolling program of education. Is that the way that it will work?
Yes. So we're the directors and we're doing the training ourselves. But the training is already getting quite advanced in that, the courses are fully booked. This course last weekend was sold out and our next course is almost completely sold out. And there's going to be times where obviously we're going to have other commitments and we can't run the courses. So we are in the process of recruiting trainers, and we've been very kindly invited to go and lead the teaching in North of England for some other providers. So it's going ahead a lot. And we have people coming from the US. We have someone coming from Australia for one-to-one training. So there's a lot of exciting things happening that we didn't even imagine would happen. But I think we have to sort of start planning contingency, business continuity, and a lot of grown-up stuff that we know nothing about. But that's what we need to start doing.
It sounds very much like something that started as a good idea that's moving very quickly and getting big quite quickly.
Becomes a business.
That's what it. But the thing is, you've got to grab it while it's like that, because you never know how things are going to turn or change. And like you say, it's just staying ahead of the curve to make sure that you kind of are always able to deliver that next stage. But there's there was a Formula One driver, a guy called Mario Andretti, years ago, and he always said that if you feel in control of the car, you're not driving fast enough. And it feels that was almost kind of describes where you're at, in that it probably feels
that literally sounds like my life right now.
Crazy. I'm pleased it's going well.
Thank you. If you know anyone who's looking for a job.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like it needs some trainers.
Send your CV in, might have been finished by the time it comes out.
Exactly. So, taking everything into account that you've got going on, are you happy at the moment?
I am very happy. Yes. And I am the type of person that feeds off of ambition and goals. So I am very happy. And although I am stressed and there is a lot on my plate, honestly, every time an opportunity comes along or it's something that's positive that we hear about, whether it's be with the London School of Facial Aesthetics or any sort of other opportunity that comes along, it really makes me really, really happy. And I can see, I'm quite an impatient person by nature. So when I see the results of my hard work, it literally makes it all worth it. And it keeps me going. So yes, I am very happy.
Good. I'm pleased for you.
Nice to hear.
Yeah, well,
happy but stressed.
Yes.
Happy but stressed.
But it's important, isn't it? Because I think not enough people stop to think about if they are happy, and they just keep going through the motions. But I think if you find something that genuinely makes you happy, life just gets a little bit easier. So even though you're tired because you've had a course and you're doing a podcast with us and you've probably got some content to create, if you're still enjoying all the things, double booked. Don't mention that. But because of all the things you've got going on, because you enjoy them and they're fulfilling, it does bring happiness with it, which is good. We always finish up in the same way. We always ask our guests the same two questions.
Right, ready? I'm ready.
So,
Are you ready?
Oh gosh.
Well, I'm getting ready. Getting ready. So the first question that we have for you is, if you could be a fly on the wall with somebody in a certain situation, when and where would that be?
So I actually don't like to be a fly on the wall. I don't think I would like to be a fly on the wall. So if I could request to be able to read people's minds instead when they're doing a certain thing in their life. Is that allowed?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah,
that'll do.
I was going to say, so
because you're looking.
Yeah,
I suppose
so,
you would see
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd be a fly on the side of watching somebody's thought process.
Yeah, I always want to know what people are thinking, and not necessarily about me or when I'm speaking to them. But I always want, because the stuff that goes through my mind, there's a whole load of stuff that goes through my mind when I'm doing certain things. If I'm at work and I'm doing a certain procedure, there's a whole load of stuff that goes through my mind. And I always think if someone was reading my mind right now, it would be very, very interesting for them. And I just want the same thing, to see what people think, and also what they think when they say certain stuff. Because, people say things and they don't actually mean what they're saying. I would love to know what they mean deep down when they say certain things, because I'm quite a transparent person. I don't really have a filter. But it always fascinates me to see that when people say things they don't mean, what do they actually mean instead? That's quite fascinating for me.
Yeah, it would be.
Like that film. What was that film? There was a film it had Mel Gibson in it. What Women Want. What Women Want.
That was a good movie.
Quite entertaining. I always think the blokes. Have you ever seen it?
No.
So basically, he gets electrocuted, and it gives him a ability to hear what all women are thinking, and it's brilliant because he does things like he thinks he's this great Lothario or whatever, and basically he's walking past women, he's going morning, and they're going knob. He's such an arse or something like that. It's a real,
no idea.
It's a really. I think it's quite a good film. Really, it's just quite entertaining. It's a very sweet film actually, but it is quite funny. Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying though, because there is that disconnect, isn't there, between how people behave and what they say and what the brain is actually truly thinking and believing, but that's not translating through to the words or the actions.
Yeah, so I would love to know what people are truly thinking when they say certain things. And exactly like that movie. It's so fascinating because he thinks certain things, whereas in reality it's completely different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. His take as opposed to the reality.
And I'm sure
you're going to go and watch it now, aren't you?
I was going to say that must be all of us.
There was a new film. There was a new one. Did you see there was a new one out called What Men Want? I've never watched it. It was done from a female point of view. I never bothered watching it. But it's so you go home and watch What Women Want. It is quite funny. It is quite interesting.
I'm going to watch that second one now.
Yeah, What Men Want. I think.
I'm not sure. Should I watch it with Caroline or should I watch it on my own?
No, you can watch it. Yeah, no. It's family.
She's probably watched it.
She probably has. She probably has.
Yeah, that's true. You're in trouble, man.
And our follow-up question is, if you could meet anybody, who would you like to meet if you were given the opportunity?
So this one's quite an emotional one. I would love to meet my grandparents. So I never got the opportunity to meet my paternal grandparents. I did meet my maternal grandparents, but I lost them at a very early age. And we always speak about my maternal grandma in particular. She was ahead of her time by so much, and everything that we do, we always speak about how it's her legacy and it's her line of thinking. Okay. And I think they would have, my grandma, for example, did a lot of first aid, and she gave my brother sort of her first aid bag. It was like this leather briefcase, and she gave it to him, and that's when he was inspired to become a doctor. So I think she would be really proud of what we've done and what we've achieved and everything that I do. I think it would be really, really nice to meet them and see that what they've created and their legacy moving on in today's age. So I would love to meet them and be able to see what they think of what we've done with the gene pool.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be very proud.
The genes are strong.
I'm sure they'd be very proud. Shaadi, it's been wonderful. It's been a lovely chat. You're always so much good fun, and like I say, you are so positive and bright. And I think that's even more powerful given some of the early challenges you had as you came into dentistry as well. You know, everybody sees you now and thinks, oh, well, she's had it easy. Everything just fell into place, and clearly it didn't. And you've had to work on it, and you've built your resilience, and those things have gone into the melting pot that's made you the woman you are today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been nice being a guest for a change, and that
go.
got a bit more emotional than I anticipated, but thank you so much for having me.
That's our skill, you see. We get to people to relax and tell us all about themselves.
The idea is we try and almost give you an hour off. That's the thing. It should be like you can just sit and you just talk about yourself.
Shopping or coffee. Sorry.
No, that's right. That's
Thank you so much for having me.
Not at all. Could you also just drop us a link to your London School of Facial Aesthetics as well, because we'll drop that into the guest notes, and if anybody was interested in booking on the course or finding out more about it, they can hop on there and have a look. So we'll pop those in for you, which would be good. But no, it's been wonderful. We'll let you go because I'm sure you've got, well, I know you've got other things you should be doing, but
you've got a podcast about now.
Honestly, I've never done that before. I'm so embarrassed, but I'm glad I did this one because I think this don't tell Justin.
We won't.
We'll edit that out.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Shaadi. Keep well.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.